Cydonia was probably constructed to communicate something very fundamental. In fact, from the geometry we found, we believe it was designed to communicate a whole new physics, a grand unified field theory, as it were, given to us, communicated even by the Viking photographs, by the geometric layout of the structures.
Researchers now believe that the key to understanding the entire Cydonia complex may lie in the geometry of the D&M pyramid, the size, shape, and position of the massive structure. Hoagland's colleague at the Defense Mapping Agency, Errol Torn, successfully deduced this key object's internal geometry and found it all came down to 19.5 degrees.
Why 19.5? On every major or minor planet that NASA has flown by, photographed, or mapped in the last 30 years, there appears to be a major disturbance located just about 19.5 degrees north or south.
The great red spot on the planet Jupiter has been viewed as essentially a great cyclone, primarily presumed to be an atmospheric storm larger than the entire planet Earth that continues to churn for its over 300 years of observation at 19.5 degrees south. According to Hoagland, on every planet in our solar system, there does seem to be some kind of major geological or atmospheric disturbance at 19.5 degrees north or south, including our own gigantic volcano Mauna Loa, raging up from the center of the Earth in the Hawaiian Islands at 19.5 degrees north. Does this suggest that the builders of the D&M pyramid recorded in its structure a key to the inner nature of every planet in our system, including our own? Could it be there is a reason for leaving the number 19.5 encrypted in a pyramid?
This is a four-sided, four-cornered figure known for thousands of years as a tetrahedron. If you put this structure inside a sphere, such as a planet, it predicts via a 100-year-old mathematical theory some remarkable physical properties.
Hoagland claims that if you place a perfect tetrahedron or pyramid within a sphere such as a planet, so that one tip is at the north or south pole, the other tips will fall at the latitude of 19.5 degrees, the same as the angles discovered in the D&M pyramid.
19.5 is a significant number in the Bible. It symbolizes faith. In biblical numerics, 19 is associated with the most faithful people and the greatest promises in the Bible. The 0.5 of this number represents grace and hope.
And that is precisely what Hoagland and his associates have continued to do. Hope. So far as anyone knows, the Mars observer was never heard from again. And there were two more notches to the credit of the galactic ghoul, as a Mars orbiter and the Mars polar lander both failed in 1999. But there was a probe that did make it into orbit, the Mars Global Surveyor.
Finally, on the 5th of April, 1998, after almost a quarter of a century of waiting, we got from Mars Global Surveyor what should have been an exquisite, much higher resolution image of the face on Mars. Unfortunately, after JPL got through enhancing what came to be known in some circles as the cat box image, there was nothing left to see, which was obviously their intent all along.
As you might suspect, NASA and JPL were not the only imaging experts to review the 1998 photographs.
The image that JPL released to the media in 1998 is not at all a faithful representation of even the raw data, let alone what is actually there. Image processing experts who have now treated the image properly have shown that it does indeed look very much like a hominid face. When we got the original image of the face in 1976, there was always the possibility that it was just a trick of light and shadow or something that was an accident of nature. When we got the high-resolution image, to our amazement, all of the secondary facial features were there too. Eyebrow, irises, nostrils, and lips with the correct size, shape, location, and orientation to be portrayals of a humanoid face. The odds against each of those things happening by accident range from 1 in 10 to 1 in 10,000. When you put them all together, the odds against all of them being accidents of nature are 100 billion to 1. Based on the results of the test, the object is artificial beyond a reasonable doubt.
The Mars Global Surveyor went into orbit in late 1997, and since has been sending back literally tens of thousands of exquisite pictures of all of Mars. But Malin Scientific and Dr. Malin himself, who have the chief contract for the camera, have actually only been releasing these pictures in dribs and drabs, spaced out over several months and even years, until Arizona Senator John McCain let NASA know in no uncertain terms that there would be a day of reckoning if in fact it were proven that the agency had deliberately withheld vital information either from the Congress or from the American taxpayer. Suddenly, without warning, JPL released 9 new Cydonia images, some as much as 2 years old. Eventually, 60,000 new images of Mars were dramatically released, and on those, some breathtaking discoveries have now begun to quietly unfold. For instance, perched on a mile-high cliff in the Martian equivalent of the Grand Canyon, Valles Marineris, there is something which gives the impression of being the equivalent of a Martian flying saucer. As you can see, this is a distinct oval. In fact, it's a convex oval with the sun coming from this direction, the shadowed side here, a fluted rim hanging several hundred feet over this very steep vertical cliff a mile above the valley floor. If you look at the image on the right, you can actually see that in addition to it being oval, it has a pointed front. And on the front, there are windows. In the back, with very interesting symmetry configuration, there appear to be the engines. In June of 2000, we discovered potentially our most extraordinary artifact, this mile-long, several hundred-foot-wide structure with translucent exterior, a brilliant sun glint, and evenly spaced ribs that looks for all the world like an artificially constructed glass tunnel, which some have termed, like Arthur Clarke, a glass worm on the surface of a planet where it has, again, no business being. We have over a mile-long, curvilinear, convex structure with these extraordinary ribs that appear to be some kind of structural support. And right in the middle, there's a brilliant sun glint and a darker shadow, indicating in the model that this is a constructed object, that maybe it's a transportation tube. And this little thing, which actually is several hundred feet wide on the scale of the photograph, is perhaps a car, trapped in the middle of the tube when whatever disaster hit Mars and broke the tube at this point hit the planet. It's sometimes hard to gauge what's going on Mars from a two-dimensional photograph, so what we did was go to one of our Enterprise mission colleagues, Chris Joseph, and ask him to submit this image to a shape from shading algorithm. What that allows us to do is to recreate a three-dimensional construction of the two-dimensional form. And what we clearly see is an undulating glass-like tunnel with a sharp break at the position of the car, continuing on down the valley, as one would expect of a greatly eroded ancient artificial structure on the planet Mars. Because this is such a controversial discovery, what we did was what you do in any science, go to another opinion. So we got Kinthea and Fred Torres to generate a moving animated diagram of the same structure using the same shape from shading algorithm. And what you see here is a pan around this little valley and then the tube. And if you look carefully over here, you can see that there's a definite 3D structure to this object with regular spaced ribbing high above the valley floor. Whatever these are, they are not sand dunes. They appear to be structural components of a tube. And as we continue to pan down this valley, which is created by some unknown geological process long after this tube was ever built, you can see that these ribs are on the edges of the valley, not along the floor, something again that sand dunes just don't do. So what we seem to be seeing is the most extraordinary Mars Surveyor find, namely a huge work of megalithic engineering lying on an ancient Martian plain. The great mystery at this point seems to be if the Enterprise mission and its colleagues can find all this and so much more, then why can't NASA? Or is there something more? Is it possible that they have seen what we have seen and also understand what's really there, but have a reason to keep silent?
Is this face just a natural formation, or was it constructed by some long-lost civilization? And what of the pyramids of Mars? Are they the ancestors of the pyramids